Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Weekly Roar. Thanks for coming back to the Lion's Den for this week's watch party. It's time again to talk about another concept in the foundations of leadership. But before I jump into today's topic, let me introduce myself for those of you who might be watching for your first time. I'm Greg Storch, and I'm the founder of Lion Enterprise. It's a leadership development and coaching business where I'm placing my focus on helping organizations develop positive work cultures. I'm a certified professional leadership coach and also a certified speaker and trainer. All right, now that that's out of the way, did you join me for the Weekly Roar last Wednesday? I continued my series called Follow the Leader, Concepts in the Foundations of Leadership. Last week's topic was about a leader's ability to get the team or the organization moving forward and then capitalizing on that forward motion. I called it the one and only difference maker, because if you're missing momentum, having a great vision and the best team just won't matter if you can't get them moving along. Listen, if you did not make it into the Lion's Den for the Weekly Roar last week, don't sweat it. All you have to do is jump over to my website at www.lion-enterprise.com. Click at the top of the page on the Lion's Pride library, and you'll see all my videos there. Last week's video is number 66, and it's a great way for you to get more of the roar. So this week, I'm talking about why good leaders never confuse action with progress, and the importance of prioritization, regardless of your leadership role in the organization. Whether you're leading a company, a church, a baseball team, whatever, good leaders know that they always have to put the first things first. All right, what do you say we jump right into this concept? Let me start out just by saying that leadership is not about being comfortable. It's about making progress. And in order for leaders to make progress, they have to have their priorities straight. They have to put the first things first. I know it might sound obvious that a leader's job is to prioritize what's important, but sometimes it's easier said than done. Sometimes we might get so busy that we just don't take the time to do the first things first or prioritize our activities. The hazard there is that we can fall into the trap of confusing activity with progress. Other times, as leaders, we can just get exhausted from the hard work of having to forecast, understand what should come first and what should follow in order to execute our vision. And having that 50,000-foot view to understand how all of the tiny little pieces of the puzzle fit together in the overall vision. That's really hard work, and it can throw us off our game when we're constantly pushing it. It can lead to prioritizing the wrong things or just not prioritizing things at all. Now, this is probably a good place to put in a plug for self-care. To me, self-care is taking time for ourselves to rest, relax, and re-energize. Without that recharge, we can't be at the top of our game. Never think you're too important to be gone away from the work to take time for yourself. I'll tell you what, I respect leaders more when they have the awareness of the importance of taking that time off than I do for those who are what I would call workaholics, never taking time to decompress and unwind. Leaders who are all work and no play aren't doing anyone any favors, including themselves. Prioritizing sounds simple enough. Just do the first things first. But the truth about having to prioritize is that it will force a leader to get out of their comfort zone by doing things they may not really want to do. It forces tough decisions that sometimes can be downright painful, to be honest with you. I'm doing all this talking about priorities, and I haven't even defined what a priority really is. People tend to think that setting priorities is an easy thing to do because they're generally making a choice between something bad and something good. There's no real trade-off there. When we try to set priorities between something not needed or needed, we're just identifying the one true thing that should be done. It's a no-brainer. That's why when I was in high school, my parents used to always tell me that I needed to get my priorities straight. It was because I always was choosing the wrong G. I was always prioritizing girls over grades. Of course, my parents' priorities were the other way around. The point that I'm trying to make here is that this wasn't really prioritizing because there was one clear choice. Not that girls were bad and academics were good, but like I mentioned, prioritization isn't making a choice between two things where only one of them clearly should be done. Actually, prioritizing is really about making choices between important things that need to get done and deciding in which order to do them. Now, that's how I would define prioritization. Both things need to be done, but which one is going to come first? One of the biggest contributors to our success is our ability to prioritize. I know a lot of people who are out there really working hard. They're always at it. But at the same time, I only see a few of them who are making progress and just crushing it. That all comes down to prioritizing. Now, you've probably heard the expression, don't confuse action with progress. Sometimes we can be doing 1,000 things, but still not get anywhere. That's why prioritization is so important. Being busy with stuff doesn't equate to moving forward or making progress. There's tons of things we can do during the day, but are they the right things that we need to be doing? The idea that we can possibly be doing 1,000 things and be effective is just crazy talk. It's really our ability not to do most things that will actually help us move the needle. How many times have you been working on a project and your mind just starts to wander? Next thing you know, you're watching another cat video on YouTube or catching up on your news feed on Facebook. Yes, you can absolutely be doing a lot of things every day, but doing the right things, prioritizing tasks, is where you will actually find yourself gaining the traction you need. A lot of successful people are successful in large part due to their ability to prioritize effectively. They decide what's important and then they do the important things. Hey, have you guys ever heard of a man by the name of Ivy Lee? Well, if not, you're more likely to have heard of a guy by the name of Charles Schwab. Now, Charles Schwab was in the steel business, and he was one of the richest men in the world back in the early 1900s. Well, Ivy Lee was a highly respected productivity consultant that was hired by Schwab to help increase the efficiency of his team and to help him discover better ways to get things done. So Lee was working with Schwab's executives, and he shared a simple daily routine for prioritizing work that resulted in increased productivity. This is what he told those executives. He said, at the end of each day, write down the 6 most important things that you need to accomplish tomorrow. Don't write more than 6. Then prioritize those 6 items in order of their true importance. When you start the day tomorrow, concentrate only on the first task. Work until the first task is finished before you move on to the second task, and work your way down the list. At the end of the day, you can move any of the unfinished items to a new list of 6 tasks for the following day, and repeat this process every day. That process sounds extremely simple, but guess what? The progress that Schwab's team made in 3 months earned Ivy Lee a check for $25,000. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but that was back in the early 1900s. In today's money, that's over $400,000. So, what makes such a seemingly simple method of prioritization so effective? Well, some people may criticize its simplicity, but it's actually just simple enough to actually work. A lot of people think that this has to be something really complicated because it's so important to get it right. But in my experience, when you introduce complexity, that can actually be a weakness because it really makes it harder to get back on track once there's a small deviation. Maybe the simplicity makes people wonder how it could possibly account for all the complex nuances that come your way that happen in life. Sure, of course, emergencies and unexpected things are going to happen. We know that. It happens all the time to us, right? The key to success is to ignore those things as much as possible. You deal with them when you absolutely have to deal with them. And then once you do, you get back to your prioritized to-do list as soon as possible. So, is there something magical about listing 6 tasks each day? No. It could be 4. It could be 7. But it forces you to make tough decisions about the way you're prioritizing. Tough decisions about your priorities. I think the real magic in Lee's simple approach comes from the fact that it forces us to set limits on ourselves. One of the best things that we can do when we say you have too many ideas or when you feel overwhelmed by everything you feel you need to get done is to trim away everything that isn't absolutely necessary. Constraints can actually make you better, by forcing you to commit to something. Because if you commit to nothing, you'll be distracted by everything. The other cool thing about this way of prioritizing is that it helps us get over the hurdle of just getting started. Sometimes our biggest challenges to finishing is just getting tasks started. There's also some genius in creating the list the night before. Knowing what the priorities are for the next day can help you avoid wasted time in making decisions on what needs to get done that day and which of those things should come first, are the priority. If you decide the night before, you can wake up and get started right away. It's simple, but it works. When we're first starting out, getting started is just as important as succeeding at all. Planning and prioritizing this way forces you to be single task minded. And that's kind of really difficult to do in today's world, isn't it? We live in a society that prides itself on multitasking. The problem that we can easily fall into is the trap of believing that being busy is the same as being better, when actually the opposite is true. Having fewer priorities leads to better work. You can't be great at one task if you're constantly dividing your time 10 different ways. If you want to really master something, it requires that you focus, be consistent, and prioritize. So you're probably asking, how do you get better at prioritization? Well, you have to start with knowing what's important, but also being able to recognize those things that are urgent and tend to take up too much of your time and attention. The attention grabbers. Yes, some of the less important but urgent things still need to happen. I get it. But wherever possible, the things that you've determined as your top priorities for the day should be done first. If we do the small, urgent, but less important things first, we don't have time for the more important things. But if we do the important things first, somehow we manage to fit the urgent but less important things in around them. All right, I want to have a little fun with you guys today. So here's an example. I'm going to give you a visual of this, and I'm borrowing this visual from Stephen Covey. Now I'm going to use rocks and a sand in a jar as an analogy for the important and less important tasks. So let's say this empty jar represents our day. This empty jar can hold 8 hours of work in it. So this sand represents the least important tasks. And these rocks here, you can't see them because they're black rocks. These little rocks, these rocks, they represent the most important things we need to get done for the day. These rocks would be like the 6 things you wrote on your list the night before, right? So if I fill my day up with the least important tasks, then I'm failing to prioritize properly. I'm filling my day with the multitude of less important things, and by the end of the day, I'm full and I've accomplished all the little things, but now I have no room for the big things They don't fit in your day. But if I start by putting rocks in place first, by doing the most important tasks first, right? All my important tasks done. And then I allow for the little things to happen. I'm able to complete my priorities and still manage to fit the urgent things around them. They both fit and fill your day. So now I've done my big tasks and all the other little smaller but still important things get done. All right. So it's our responsibilities as leaders to make tough decisions based on priorities. And that doesn't always make us the most popular person in the room. But our greatest success comes from our ability to focus our people on what really matters. How do we do that? We do it by understanding that activity is not necessarily accomplishment. Taking responsibility for prioritizing and thinking ahead of your team or your group, ahead of your organization, one step ahead of your family. A leader isn't successful until they help their people to be successful. And you have to prioritize in order to make that happen. Okay, everybody, there goes another concept in the foundations of leadership, the importance of prioritization. Please leave your thoughts and comments down below and let me know what you think about this. Thank you guys so much for tuning in again this week for another weekly roar. I appreciate your support. And remember, if you like this content, please share out the link to my weekly roar videos. I'll post them here after the watch party in a separate post. Don't share the actual watch party link because once the watch party ends, it can't be viewed. All right, thanks you guys. I'm going to be back here again next week, same place, same time, to speak about another concept in the foundations of leadership. Now, next week, I'm going to talk about the need for leaders to make sacrifices in order to realize success. I'm going to shed some light on why they say it's lonely at the top. And I'll share some of the things you should know about paying the price for being the leader. All right, everybody, until we meet again next week, remember, be powerful, but stay poised, just like a lion. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.